This is an ATI mount. It's about $40 through Amazon, I think. And it has two holes in it to start with. And you can see here is a receiver that's been drilled with two holes for the ATI mount. And they're drilling just about as far forward as they can without touching the barrel. But if you have the ability to take the barrel off, then I drill and countersink another hole in the mount and then into the receiver so that it hangs on a little better. Here is another ATI mount, and again we see that it's got the extra hole has been drilled and counterset in the front. This one is on a VZ59 machine gun bull barrel, which is a very hard fit. This is a Generation 1 AR flat top riser distributed by Tapco. I'm sure it's made in China. When they obsoleted those, I called them up and dickered them down on a quantity price. And you can see there's quite a bit of meat here, and it basically amounts to a weaver rail. So that you put that on the milling machine and mill it out, you can make a Mosin Nagant scope mount, which has been done here. And it's had more relief than it probably needs. And this particular rifle I hunted with, and it shipped the reticle loose in a old Very X2 2x7 Leopold, and I sent it to Leopold, and they sent me a new VX1 2x7. Here's an M39 that has got a hex receiver, and I've milled out the Tapco Gen 1 AR riser to fit it in the hex shape. It didn't fit perfectly, but it's glass bedded between there, so it fits just fine. And again, this is a pair of 6 48 threads that are holding it down. Here is a Tapco AR-15 riser that's been milled out as a Mosin Nagant scope mount, with the benefit of the knowledge of what happens if it's too thin a cantilever. See, this one has got a lot of material that's in cross-section, kind of like the more modern rock solid one. And it fits on this receiver right here, where you can see the screw holes are fairly far apart. If I can show anything with one hand. See, the distance between these two holes is fairly far apart, and I've made these two holes and counterset them fairly far apart, and then I've got quite a bit of height here for stiffness. The stiffness is a function of the height cubed. This is a Federal Arms Corporation imported from China cast steel 1-inch set of rings meant for mounting on an AK-47. I think what it was really originally meant for was making a Sniper 9130. So if we take off the removable scope and get rid of this base, then we've got basically a set of 1-inch rings that are in steel, that are solid, that are weldable. If we cut off the bottom right about here, and then I made a fixture, and then we weld it onto a Mosin Nagant receiver, then we have 1-inch rings that basically aren't gonna come loose. It's basically TIG welded through here. The welding fixture that I made for attaching the Federal Arms Corp scope mount to the Mosin Nagant receiver is that piece of aluminum that's got two V's in it that I milled in it, and then cylindrical rods that basically are located in parallel and a certain distance apart based on that. And then one of those is the 1-inch diameter to fit in the scope mounts, and then one is the approximately 0.7 inches that fits in the bolt bore of the receiver. And then this acts as a fixture so that we have a scope mount where the center of the scope tube is going to be aligned with the bolt. This is another Mosin Nagant that's been converted to 3030 here. That's got a welded on Federal Arms Corp FAC cut down AK-47 steel dual ring mount. Here we have a two-piece scope mount that is a hybrid, really. It's welded on steel on the rear of the receiver, and then it is been an aluminum block that's been had a radius made on the bottom, so it's been bolted to the top, drilled and tapped with two 648 screws, and then glass bedded to the receiver. And then I've milled out They look like Weaver, but actually I used the spec for Picatinny, or however you pronounce that fort's name back there back east. And the real force on a scope is when you recoil it. It pulls, or scope mount, it pulls up on the scope mount when you recoil, because as you go back like this, the mass of the scope wants to stay a little higher. The force and shear this way and this way is not much for a scope mount to deal with, but this vertical tension right here is a problem for some scope mounts.